Today I have for you a special episode celebrating the life of Elizabeth II on her Platinum Jubilee. Elizabeth II, or in full Elizabeth Alexandra Mary, officially Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories, Queen, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. Queen Elizabeth II was born on 21st of April 1926 in London, England. She became the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland from February the 6th, 1952. And in 2015, she surpassed Queen Victoria to become the longest reigning monarch in British history. And now she has reached another milestone, celebrating her Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the throne. Elizabeth was the elder daughter of Prince Albert, Duke of York, and his wife, Lady Elizabeth Boyce-Lyon. As the child of a younger son of King George V, the young Elizabeth had little prospect of acceding to the throne until her uncle, Edward VIII, afterwards Duke of Windsor, abdicated in her father's favor on December the 11th, 1936, at which time her father became King George VI, and she became heir presumptive. The princess's education was supervised by her mother, who entrusted her daughters to a governess, Marianne Crawford. The princess was also grounded in history by C.H.K. Martin, afterwards Provost of Eton College, and had instruction from visiting teachers in music and languages. During World War II, she and her sister Princess Margaret Rose were forced to spend much of their time safely away from the London Blitz and separated from their parents, living mostly at Balmoral Castle in Scotland and at the Royal Lodge, Windsor and Windsor Castle. Early in 1947, Princess Elizabeth went with the King and Queen to South Africa. After her return, there was an announcement of her betrothal to her distant cousin, Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten of the Royal Navy, formerly Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark. The marriage took place in Westminster Abbey on November 20th, 1947. On the evening of the wedding, her father, the king, conferred upon the bridegroom the titles of Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Merioneth, and Baron Greenwich. They took residence at Clarence House in London. Their first child, Prince Charles, was born November 14, 1948, at Buckingham Palace. In the summer of 1951, the health of King George VI entered into a serious decline, and Princess Elizabeth stood in for him on many state occasions. On October the 7th, she and her husband set out on a highly successful tour of Canada and Washington, D.C. After Christmas in England, she and the Duke set out in January 1952 for a tour of Australia and New Zealand. But en route at Sagana, Kenya, news reached them of the king's death on February the 6th, 1952. Elizabeth, now Queen, at once flew back to England. The first 3 months of her reign, the period of full mourning for her father, were passed in comparative seclusion. But in the summer, after she had moved from Clarence House to Buckingham Palace, she undertook the routine duties of the sovereign, and carried out her first state openings of Parliament on November 4th, 1952. Her coronation was held at Westminster Abbey on June 2nd, 1953. Beginning in November 1953, the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh made a 6-month round-the-world tour of the Commonwealth, which included the first visit to Australia and New Zealand by a reigning British monarch. In 1957, after state visits to various European nations, she and the Duke visited Canada and the United States. In 1961, she made the first Royal British tour of the Indian subcontinent in 50 years, and she was also the first reigning British monarch to visit South America in 1968 and the Persian Gulf countries in 1979. During her Silver Jubilee in 1977, she presided at a London banquet attended by the leaders of the 36 members of the Commonwealth, travelled all over Britain and Northern Ireland, and toured overseas in the South Pacific and Australia, in Canada and in the Caribbean. On the accession of Queen Elizabeth, her son Prince Charles became heir apparent. He was named Prince of Wales on July 26, 1958, and was so invested on July 1, 1969. The Queen's other children were Princess Anne, born August 15, 1950, and created Princess Royal in 1987, Prince Andrew, born February 19, 1960, and created Duke of York in 1986, and Prince Edward, born March 10, 1964, and created Earl of Wessex and Viscount Severn in 1999. All these children have the surname of Windsor, but in 1960, Elizabeth decided to create her hyphenated name Mountbatten Windsor for other descendants not styled Prince or Princess and Royal Highness. The Queen seemed increasingly aware of the modern role of monarchy, allowing, for example, the televising of the royal family's domestic life in 1970 and condoning the formal dissolution of her sister's marriage in 1978. In the 1990s, however, the royal family faced a number of challenges. In 1992, a year that Elizabeth referred to as the royal family's annus horribilis, Prince Charles and his wife Diana, Princess of Wales, separated, as did Prince Andrew and his wife Sarah, Duchess of York. Moreover, Anne divorced, and a fire gutted the royal residence of Windsor Castle. In addition, as the country struggled with the recession, resentment over the royals' lifestyle mounted, and in 1992 Elizabeth, although personally exempt, agreed to pay taxes on her private income. The separation and later divorce of Charles in 1996 and the immensely popular Diana further eroded support for the royal family, which was viewed by some as antiquated and unfeeling. The criticism intensified following Diana's death in 1997, especially after Elizabeth initially refused to allow the national flag to fly at half-staff over Buckingham Palace. In line with her earlier attempts at modernizing the monarchy, the Queen subsequently sought to present a less stuffy and less traditional image of the monarchy. These attempts were met with mixed success. In 2002, Queen Elizabeth celebrated her 50th year on the throne. As part of her Golden Jubilee, events were held throughout the Commonwealth, including several days of festivities in London. The celebrations were somewhat diminished by the deaths of Elizabeth's mother and sister early in the year. Beginning in the latter part of the first decade of the 21st century, the public standing of the royal family rebounded, and even Charles's 2005 marriage to Camilla Parker Bowles found much support among the British people. In April 2011, Queen Elizabeth led the family in celebrating the wedding of Prince William of Wales, the elder son of Charles and Diana, and Catherine Middleton. The following month, she surpassed George III to become the second longest reigning monarch in British history, behind Victoria. Also in May, Queen Elizabeth made a historic trip to Ireland, becoming both the first British monarch to visit the Irish Republic and the first to set foot in Ireland since 1911. In 2012, Elizabeth celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, marking 60 years on the throne. On September 9, 2015, she surpassed Victoria's record reign of 63 years and 216 days. And now, celebrating her Platinum Jubilee, she has been on the throne for 70 years. In August 2017, Prince Philip officially retired from public life, though he periodically appeared at official engagements after that. In the meantime, Queen Elizabeth began to reduce her own official engagements, passing some duties on to Prince Charles and other senior members of the royal family. Though the pool of stand-ins shrank when Charles's younger son, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and his wife Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, controversially chose to give up their royal roles in March 2020. During this period, public interest in the Queen and the royal family grew as a result of the widespread popularity of The Crown, a Netflix television series about the Windsors that started in 2016. Having dealt with several physical setbacks in recent years, Prince Philip, who had been Elizabeth's husband for more than 7 decades, died in April 2021. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1997, Elizabeth had said of Philip, "He has, quite simply, been my strength and stay all these years." Queen Elizabeth II is known to favor simplicity in court life and is also known to take a serious and informed interest in government business, aside from the traditional and ceremonial duties. Privately, she became a keen horsewoman. She keeps race horses, frequently attends races, and periodically visits the Kentucky stud farms in the United States. Her financial and property holdings have made her one of the world's richest women. Here are some interesting facts about Queen Elizabeth II. Her actual birthday is April 21st, but she celebrates a second birthday in June because royal birthdays are celebrated twice if they don't naturally fall in the summer. As we've already mentioned, she is the longest reigning monarch ever in Britain, beating even Queen Victoria, her great-great-grandmother. As Queen, she has been served by 14 UK Prime Ministers, including her first Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, and the first female Prime Minister of Britain, Margaret Thatcher. Her favorite dogs are corgis, and her first dog was actually called Susan. She even invented a new breed of dog when her corgi mated with a dachshund belonging to her sister, Princess Margaret, creating the Dorgie. The Queen's birthplace is now a fancy Cantonese restaurant called Hakkasan at 17 Bruton Street in Mayfair. The Queen first sent an email in 1976 and published her first Instagram post in 2019. The Queen owns an elephant, 2 giant turtles, a jaguar, and a pair of sloths, which were obviously presents from other countries. all of which live in London Zoo. Queen Elizabeth, at the time Princess Elizabeth, made her first radio broadcast in October 1940 during the Second World War. Once on a low-key trip to Scotland, she met some American tourists while walking. As she was in undercover mode, they did not recognize her. When the tourist asked if she lived locally, she mentioned that she had a house nearby. And when asked if she had ever met the Queen, she simply pointed at her security and said, "No, but he has." In 1982, an intruder managed to break into Buckingham Palace and enter the Queen's bedroom. They had a 10-minute conversation before she called security. Her personal nicknames include Lilibet and Cabbage. She got the nickname Lilibet when she was young and couldn't pronounce her name. King George VI used to talk about his daughter saying, "Lilibet is my pride, Margaret is my joy." It has also been reported that Prince Philip lovingly referred to his wife as Cabbage. Queen Elizabeth studied constitutional history and law. She was tutored at home by Britain's best tutors. She studied constitutional history and law as preparation for her future role, and took lessons in religion from Archbishop of Canterbury. She was also taught by the Vice Provost of Eton College. Queen Elizabeth II joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service in 1945 during World War II, where she was trained to be a mechanic. She was the first female member of the royal family to join the armed services as a full-time active member. The Queen learned how to drive during her time in the army. In 1945, the Queen does not actually need a driving license to be able to drive, nor a passport to be able to travel. As a sign of modest political protest, in a way, when the King of Saudi Arabia visited Britain, she drove him around her estates, as at that time Saudi Arabia did not allow women drivers in their own country. Queen Elizabeth II actually speaks fluent French. She learned to speak French at a young age from French and Belgian governesses. She often speaks in the country's language when visiting, and even shocked many when she delivered an address at the state banquet in 2014 speaking French. According to the official royal website, it is a skill which has stood the Queen in a good stead, as she often has cause to use it when speaking to ambassadors and heads of state from French-speaking countries and when visiting French-speaking areas of Canada. Queen Elizabeth II receives about 70,000 letters a year, which would be about 200 to 300 letters a day. She chooses a few to read herself and then has members of her staff respond. The official website says that the Queen is shown almost all of her correspondence on a daily basis by one of her private secretaries, and she takes a keen interest in the letters she receives. Her crown actually snapped on her wedding day. The tiara that Elizabeth II wore on her wedding day was made in 1919 for her grandmother, Queen Mary. On the day of her wedding, as a hairdresser was securing the veil with the tiara, the antique metal frame snapped. The Queen Mother reportedly told her daughter, "We have 2 hours and there are other tiaras." Queen Elizabeth paid for her wedding dress in coupons from war. The Queen used her rationing coupons and received a gift of 200 coupons from the British government in order to buy the material needed to create her beautiful wedding dress. The iconic dress featured a 13-foot-long train and over 10,000 seed pearls imported from the US. Prince Philip was her third cousin. The Queen and her husband Prince Philip were technically third cousins related through Queen Victoria, as she was both of their great-great-grandmother. Prince Philip is related to Victoria through his maternal side and Queen Elizabeth through her paternal side. All of the swans and dolphins in the UK waters technically belong to the Queen. As early as the 12th century, the Crown claimed ownership of all mute swans in the country because the birds were highly valued as a delicacy at banquets and feasts. The Queen also owns all of the whales and dolphins in the waters around the United Kingdom. A statute from 1324 states, "Also the King shall have whales and sturgeons taken in the sea or elsewhere within the realm." This statute is still valid today, and whales and dolphins are recognized as fishes royal. The Queen is known to have a glass of champagne each night. Her cousin Margaret Rhodes opened up to The Independent about Her Majesty's drinking habits. She takes a gin and Dubonnet before lunch with a slice of lemon and a lot of ice. She will take wine with lunch and a dry martini and a glass of champagne in the evening. So for her Platinum Jubilee, let's all raise a glass of champagne. Alright folks, that was all I had for you today about Queen Elizabeth II. I'm sure some of you know more interesting facts about the Queen, and if you would like to share, just comment on the section below. I would like to thank you all for listening to this episode, and now we shall play the national anthem.